Is AI taking over the world?
It can make lots of things better, but it can also make cyber criminals better. Holding a Hoover, cleaning up. We've gone from a world where we had a spear, a fire, and a dog. AI already changed my life, how I work. If someone's got a cough in Wuhan, and suddenly your kids can't go to school, people are going to prefer to have tasks done by AI agents than humans because they're better and less vulnerable.
Mr. Linney, is AI taking over the world, or is it going to save the world?
It's going to do a bit of both. So it's probably going to take over some of the world, a lot of what we do and how we do it, both in our personal lives, in business, even at a governmental level.
Right.
And in some ways, it will save the world. In other ways, it's going to cause complexity in terms of bad actors using that kind of technology. So there's going to be a balance, but I think overall, net, it's going to be a positive outcome.
Net's going to be a positive outcome. So talk to us a few of the things, the negative first. Let's finish on the positive. So in the short term, what are the implications for people?
So again, AI is, let's backtrack a little bit, right? So throughout history, set the scene, you had these what are called innovation curves. So innovation curve is where a technology, you've got an old technology, it might be a wooden plough and the steel's used, it might be on-premise computing infrastructure moving to the cloud, it could be any technology basically. It can be DVDs, from VHS to DVDs, anything. And what happens is you get a period of time as that new technology is introduced where you get this period of fear, uncertainty and doubt.
Yeah.
Where they're both
I've seen the curves.
arguing about each other.
Yeah.
And eventually, inevitably, the new latest technology kicks in, it's adopted. It tends to take a bit longer than people think, and then it tends to accelerate and grow, be adopted a lot faster than original thought. So the difference with a lot of technology, think about the industrial revolutions. So the first one, steam power, right? It's augmenting humans. Huge demand for these products and services. It could create an energy and power and steamships and trains, change the world. Second one was more about sort of mass production. Again, huge demand, consumerism. So what you weren't seeing is humans being displaced. You were seeing more need for cognitive labour and also physical labour. And then the third industrial revolution was more digital. So let's think about, broadly speaking, the internet, Web 1 to Web 2 to Web 3. And again, and PCs and phones and, the sort of personal computer industry, the Microsofts of the world and Apples. And again, you saw that what people did changed, but you still had a lot more humans at work, so to speak. Now, the fourth industrial revolution, which I think is driven by artificial intelligence, and we can talk about what that actually means, I think will be different. Because eventually this technology, and we're already seeing this, it will displace, replace cognitive labour, human cognitive labour. And eventually it can take a bit longer because, I'm not a big believer in Elon Musk is sort of robots wandering around your house delivering you a cup of tea, unless you've got 500 grand to buy one. But eventually, industrial robots, economies of scale, they become cheaper, and you will have these things wandering around your house, picking up the kids'
When
toys.
do you think that might be?
I think that's sort of 10, 15, 20 years out, to be honest with you, for affordable consumer ones. And they might not be humanoid, right? I think that's just the PR. The ideal robot for lots of tasks isn't a bipedal sort of humanoid-looking robot.
In some ways, we've kind of got that already, haven't we? With the little hoovers that go around.
But your Hoover, they haven't invented something.
It's not even Hoover, is it? It's
it is Hoover, but it's not a bipedal humanoid android thing holding a Hoover, cleaning up. Its form factor is designed for that specific task. So finishing that kind of pyramid of growth is that once you start displacing this cognitive labour, and then especially physical labour, then a lot of us are going to have to find something else to do.
Yeah, we are. Look, we're going to go there, and we're going to go there from a really good perspective in a second. I did a bit of research here. Let me read this out, and I'll tell you who I got this from later on. So I'm not going to tell you who I got this from yet. AI is a way to make everything that we care about better. What do you think of that?
It can make lots of things better, but it can also make cyber criminals better. So it depends on what you call better. Now,
everything that we care about.
Generally speaking, if you think about think about science and humanity generally, right? So our code is it's DNA. So it takes millennia for that to evolve, yeah. But as we've progressed and humans have progressed, we've only been around like, what, 250,000 years? Probably, and only a couple of hundred years actually with the real ability to leverage technology. And we've got to go to university, go and get a master's, do a PhD, spend your whole life researching, invent something. Somebody else comes along and stands on the shoulders of those giants, and it keeps growing. Go back to the innovation curve model. It's different with artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence, if you think about it, it potentially will be the last human invention. Well, at least the last one that's solely created by humans.
Interesting.
Because after that, anything we do or think about or create or design will to some extent involve this technology. And when you talk about, you hear about people talk about artificial general intelligence, artificial super intelligence. And, this is not...
What is that?
This is not... I have this dystopian view of these large androids trampling over the skulls of crushed humans in some other dystopian warscape. That's nonsense. This technology is still technology, like your toaster's technology. But AGI, so most intelligences currently are specialized. So, your chat GPTs, it's a chatbot, and it can do very good at communication, not particularly good at mathematics, always getting better. And it's not a particularly good database, for example, but there are sort of databases that are better designed to interact with large language models. And so what you're going to see is this technology sort of evolve in ways that we don't fully understand, and you're starting to see it begin to iterate. So what will happen is it'll iterate faster and faster, and it'll start to learn, and it will start to... And think about humans now, rather than generations, you may find that these AIs have discovered something which changes the world by breakfast, and by lunchtime they've designed a way to actually deploy it and design it and produce it, and by dinner they've thought of something else. So the rate of change starts going from these long, decades long, or even centuries long in some cases, innovation curves, to continuous, infinite repetition almost every second of the day. And that's when you get this exponential change. And there's a lot of talk about exponential growth, and we humans struggle to understand exponential growth because we live in a linear world. We've gone from a world where we had a spear, a fire, and a dog, and that didn't change for 200,000 years. And our world was almost what we could see. That was it. And nothing changed year to year, season to season, generation to generation until quite recently. But we're going to see exponential. So wherever we are on that growth curve, we think of it continuing in a linear fashion. If it goes to here, linear, here, linear. It isn't. It's exponential. And, if someone's got a cough in Wuhan and suddenly your kids can't go to school. That's exponential growth. That's geometric progression. Slightly different things, but that's what we're going to experience. And we as mere humans find it really hard to comprehend it. And I think that, unlike other technologies, blockchain is a great example. What's the use case? That got a bit lost in people making money, but AI already changed my life, how I work. It is changing the way people think about what they're going to be doing already in the future. People aren't applying to be radiologists anymore because technology is better at humans. And eventually, in our lifetime, hopefully, a lot of things are going to be... People are going to prefer to have tasks done by AI agents than humans because they're better and less fallible.
It's interesting, isn't it? So that on that curve, because we don't understand exponential curves, it can elicit that fear. It's like the fear of the unknown to a certain degree.
Unknown.
And I hear this from a lot of people. When we're making decisions about our future and we're planning and we're in that logical mode, the best decisions are actually made, apparently, don't know what you think on this, when there's a bit of a blend of fear and excitement. So we've got some of these kind of doubts giving you some focus, but then you're excited about the future at the same time. How can we promote that level of excitement in AI and the future for people right now? Because we're in a doubt, hesitation, fear phase.
So if you think about how you want to make decisions, essentially, you want to make a decision, any decision. This can be, am I going to have a bath? To a business decision. And what you really want is data, context. Have I got time to have a bath? Is the water hot? And in your business, it can be much more complicated. So what you really want is data and context. And what AI allows you to do, anybody almost. And you're looking at the founder of Stability AIs, giving children in Africa an iPad with it doesn't need to be internet connected even, a chat GPT. So now anyone in the world can have access to the entirety, almost the internet, of human intelligence, or human information, I suppose, rather than intelligence, with an intelligence overlay.
Right.
So you're seeing that world will change very, very quickly. This can be, am I going to have a bath to a business decision? And what you really want is data, context. Have we got time to have a bath? Is the water hot? And in your business, it can be much more complicated. So what you really want is data and context. And what AI allows you to do, anybody almost. And you're looking at the founder of Stability AIs, giving children in Africa an iPad with it doesn't need to be internet connected even, a chat GPT. So now anyone in the world can have access to the entirety, almost the internet, of human intelligence, or human information, I suppose, rather than intelligence, with an intelligence overlay.
Right.
So you're seeing that world will change very, very quickly.
I got a quote here. This is from one of your business
I
partners.
didn't really answer your question then there. What was it again? So
look, we're in a doubt, a hesitation, fear phase.
yeah, fear, uncertainty, and
So
doubt.
how can we add some more excitement to it? I mean, that visibility piece, I think that is excitement.
Yeah, and what AI allows that kid in Africa or us to do is access data, overlay intelligence, extract insights we never even knew were there. So what that should, if you think about it, enable you to do is make better decisions.
And faster.
And faster, and with less risk, because the fog, you've got the known knowns, stuff you know, the known unknown, stuff you need to know, and the unknown unknowns.
Yeah.
So those boundaries, as you sort of move out, should be sort of the fog should clear. Although I always say that in artificial intelligence, it's very hard to understand or even imagine what it's going to look like in 2 years. There's kind of a fog 2 years out, I think, in terms of what it's going to look like. But the thing I always say is people will say to me, oh, yeah, but it doesn't do this and it doesn't do that. Bias, another one. So it removes bias from decision-making, can do. The bias in the model is quite different, but it can remove bias from decision-making. We're full of bias, as you know,
Emotional
coaching and emotional.
things.
So what it's going to do is make us more efficient. And what AI does, if you think about it, it just makes us, which might not always be a good thing, but ruthless optimizers.
Efficient, decisive. But they're two good
We might not be
things
decisive because then you've still got a human at the end of the trail trying to decide which one. What you can do though is say to one AI, you can have two, say, look, I'm thinking of doing this. I could do it this way. And I've got another AI. If I could do it this way. Now, you two AIs, I'm going to sit back and make a cup of tea and you have a discussion about what's the best way to do it. And you watch that and learn.
Yeah, well, look, to a degree, success loves speed. It doesn't love procrastination, yeah? So money loves speed. It likes to move around. It's constantly moving right now. And so what you're saying, though, is AI can speed us up. We've still got to make a decision, though, at the end.
Well, that's the interesting point, is that at some point, we're trying to hold on to the decision-making moment, but eventually we're going to understand that we're actually better off in most cases letting the AI make a decision. Now we're going to need an override. You don't really want an AI with making decisions about. You don't really want AIs making decisions about cluster bombs, but there's a ton of armaments and war. But so I've been advising quite a large automotive manufacturer over the last year or so. It came to an end, and it's interesting just thinking about that. Is that my daughter's 15. Maybe in her lifetime, definitely her children's, if she has children, is that humans will not be allowed to drive cars in cities because we're fallible. We fall asleep. We drink. We look at our phones too often. So
do you reckon that will ever become illegal?
Yeah, in a built-up environment. 'Cause why the hell would an insurer insure a vehicle with a human driving it when it's got a reasonably infallible AI that can drive it? They're all networked. You don't need to have airbags, crumple zones, because they're not going to crash. So think about things like that. Think about if AI.
This was all in the movies, like 2 decades ago.
It's coming. But if AGI or specialist AI did one thing in the next decade, and it solved nuclear fusion, right? That changed the world. all the world's water problems disappear because now you can desalinate water. You can't desalinate seawater because it's too flipping expensive. The cost of the energy required to do it.
Well, who
is more
knows
than the
though?
value of the water.
Right, honestly, you might know more about that subject than I do, and I get it. Maybe it is too expensive with our current way of thinking, and maybe AI can solve that.
Well, if AI solved fusion, you've got free energy, more or less, very close to zero. So once you've got free energy, the whole world, our human experience, utterly changes. So if it did one thing, and it was that would change our world in ways we can't even dream of. That's just one. So there are. I mean, I'm not an expert in healthcare, but in healthcare, genomics, disease control, cures to diseases. You've seen with AlphaGo, which is, was designed by DeepMind, which is part of Google. They solved this ability to use AI to solve protein folding. So it means that drug development now is being almost exponentially increased in terms of the speed at which things can be created and developed by drug companies. And that will continue. And that's just today. And the point I always make is AI today, and I mean today, not tomorrow, today is the worst it's ever going to be.
It's quite nice when you look at that, because it gets you to think really deep, that, doesn't it? We've never had as much knowledge as we've got right now. And
do you use it? Do you use it a lot? Do you use AI?
Yeah, well, more than what you know. I mean, by the way, we were talking about the Hoover earlier on. That's a brand. It's not even the
That's
machine.
a robot.
Yeah,
it's a very basic robot.
Yeah, but I think we all use AI a little bit more than we're even aware of right now. But the ones that people are aware of are the chat GBTs. So yeah, I've been using that for probably 6 months and evolving using that.
Well, most people, though, they don't understand really how to use it. So most people will, you'll sit down and say, you'll type in, I need to write an article about, I don't know, lollipops, right? And it'll write an article about lollipops, but it'll be pretty basic. What you've got to provide is context and data. And now you're supposed to put in a few words in a paragraph. Now you can copy and paste in, just for context, an entire Harry Potter novel. So now you're saying, right, here's my customer data, here's my tone of voice, here's my writing style, here's a huge amount of research, here's my database of information that's relevant. Take all of that information and data and context, and now write me that article in my tone of voice or Malcolm Gladwell's. And what you'll get back is something very, very different. And that's just like a human going into a meeting. So if we go into a meeting, I'd turn up, open the door, go and sit down, say, who are you? What are you doing? It's a very different meeting to if I'd spent the entire previous day researching who you are, what makes you tick, what you like. So now when I have a conversation with you, I'm prompting you, and AI is exactly the same. You need the context before you really engage and hit the button on generating that content.
Which makes your life better and stronger and faster and all of that kind of thing, yeah? It empowers you to be more and do more.
Massively empowering. And again, I wrote an article recently about scaling humans. So we've always talked about scaling technology, scaling platforms, and now scaling businesses. Now you can scale yourself. You can scale your employees. You can scale up your cognitive ability. Eventually, it'll be your physical abilities in many ways.
So that's a nice concept, by the way. That's human empowerment.
And it's leveling up. So in my view, disability, most of them, it's a severe disability, will become a thing of the past, be it cognitive or be it physical. Is that not only you scaled up, it's going to level people up as well.
Which, do we want that in society?
Yeah, I'm a massive believer in diversity and inclusion, and
We've never. Look, I did. We got Mary Portas along to one of our events, and she said something really, really crucial. And I was thinking of it when you were speaking earlier on. You just reminded me of it again. And yes, we might be in an AI revolution, we might be in a technology revolution, but she also says we are in you better be a good person revolution as well, because if you're not a good person, you'll be found out. Politics are finding it out, and she represented doing the right thing really well. Is that going to happen more in society as technology evolves?
Well, so I'm not sure about that, because it might not be you interacting. So let's imagine in 5 years, that there's different kinds of AIs. There's a personal, corporate. So you're going to need a longer podcast. So imagine you've got a personal AI, right? Understands everything about you.
Yeah.
Everything from your watch, your
Yep.
health data,
Got
what
it.
you like, what you read, what you do, everything about you. It's like infused of data of you on a second by second basis
Yeah.
to how you feel. Now, you want to buy a barbecue. Yeah. Now you used to go on the internet, use Google, whatever you use, Bing, search for it, find a load of websites, look at the price comparison, look at the reviews, make a decision. And now you can say, look, I want to get a barbecue. I'm going to be used for this. I need it delivered by this date. This is my price range. This is what I want to buy. I don't mind secondhand if it's this condition. You feed that information in
Well, where do you feed that to, by the
into a
way?
chatbot, into your AI. Into
So
your personal AI.
ChatGPT would work for that?
This will be a different version. This will be a
All right.
personal AI, whatever that looks like, whoever creates it. And there is one now called Pi that they're trying to do. They just raised about $1 billion to build an enormous supercomputer
Right.
to do this. And it's quite basic now. I keep playing with it. It gets quite annoying. But these will evolve again. So now you put all the information about the barber you want. And so you don't need websites anymore. That's why SEO, the web, is going to change. Because you're never going to go onto the web and look for all this data. You haven't got time. You're too busy fishing. So it's then going to go off and look for this data in a website. A website could now be a database of information, pricing, products, delivery times,
Yeah.
I don't know, your terms and conditions, your warranty, blah, blah, blah. And these AIs go off, read all that information, come back and say, look, I've gone off, I've looked at all these Barbies, and this is the 3 that I think you should look at, but I think this is the best one to buy. And then you go, okay, well, buy that one, but I don't want to pay that for it. AI goes, no problem. Goes back to the corporate AI and goes, right, I've got you a customer, but he's not willing to pay that. So then the two AI
It does the
negotiating,
negotiation.
saying, but the AI, the corporate AI knows its boundaries of what it can negotiate in the margin. And they'll come back and say, right, okay, yeah, done the deal. Didn't quite get what you wanted, but this is the best I could get. Do you want it? Yeah, I do. Thanks very much. Buys it. It's delivered. Thanks very much. That's the world we're going to within 5 years.
Within 5 years?
So going back to the Mary Portas, I'm not sure that it'll be you interacting with
But-
for the people.
Yeah, but maybe I got
So you might not know what's good or bad.
maybe I didn't direct the question in the right way, which is because ethics comes up a lot.
Yeah.
You know, when we're talking about AI, we want ethical people here. We want the good of the
But
world.
my point now is there's going to be a layer between you. So you could present yourself to the world almost good cop, bad cop, and see who succeeds. So you could go in the world and say, here's nice Piers, and he interacts with the world in this way, and here's the other Piers, he's a bit more aggressive, he's a bit annoying, and he asks a bit too much, but often gets away with it, and he's out in the world.
Which one's the real one, Piers?
Well, that's probably a blend of the two, depending on what day of the week it is and how I feel. But you might have 3 different versions of you
Yeah.
out in the world trying to see how you find your way. And so the one that succeeds might not
right?
be the perfectly nice one. I'm making this up, but you get the idea that what is good and bad in a world of ruthless optimization will be quite an interesting thing. We don't know what it's going to look like.
If AI goes into the wrong hands, it can lead to bad things. That's what I'm hearing on some of the other discussions that's going on right now. And we live in a competitive world. That's the world as we know it. Everyone wants to succeed. Is there a risk that it does go into the wrong hands? Is there a risk of being that bad cop?
It already is. I mean, the danger of any technology, the danger of the internet, the danger of personalization. We saw this a lot in Web3 as well. Is that bad actors can use this technology to gain advantage. Now, I was doing a talk a while ago, and somebody it was for a large security company, one of the top 5 in the world. It was kind of a keynote, and I was trying to be clever, talking to senior management, saying, well, in the future, obviously, all of these malware, a lot of the malware will be designed by AIs. And they all looked at each other, looked at me, and said, it's worse than that. The malware will be an AI. So imagine now you've got this.
Yeah.
This
I've
thing
got it. I've got exactly what you're saying there.
running around your computer, your watch, your phone, knowing what it's trying to find, trying to extract it and send it back to someone. So there's going to be an enormous arms race between us and the bad actors.
There's got to be a constant promotion of doing the right thing as well, though.
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever been at a better stage on equality.
Well, I'm not sure about that either.
Why?
So I advise.
I'm seeing evidence that we are, and you're seeing evidence with it.
Well, I advise lots. I advise Sky, for example. I'm on the diversity inclusion board, and so I see a lot of data. I was on the board of the government bank, British Business Bank, so I see a lot of data about companies, and diversity and inclusion, social mobility, fairness, equality. overall has kind of moved in the right direction, but it hasn't moved far enough in any way. I'll give you an example. So in the last decade, we found that one black woman had raised one Series A round of finance from a VC over, I think, $1 million in the UK, which is insane. So, and then
what was it the decade before?
Lower, probably zero.
Right.
But what the point is that although it's moved, so in difficult economic times like now, you tend to see equality and diversity and inclusion and social mobility actually go backwards. So my view is the top of society should look like the bottom, essentially. It should match, but it doesn't. And if you're an entrepreneur, you're in business, you're a coach, whatever it is ambition is evenly distributed. Access to opportunity, capital, networks, support isn't. And that has got a long, long way to go.
Yeah, I mean, that's what, like, you look at on a micro level, you look at a really successful business and you do an analysis and they're matched on values. You've got, values in the business. We've all heard of core values, etc. But it goes from top all the way to bottom and bottom all the way to top. I mean, that's the best sports teams in the world. They've got the same kind of values and principles that they all buy into. Maybe society needs that.
It does. And well, the issue about values is it's like diversity and inclusion. So diversity often can be your values. It's being asked to the party. It's being employed, for example, by a company because they've got the right values. They're on the wall in reception. Yeah. Inclusion is being asked to dance. So inclusion is where you're at the party and you're engaged. You feel that you belong there. You feel part of it and you want to stay there. Quite often, people who find themselves in businesses from, say, diverse backgrounds, whatever that be, in all of its forms, they don't survive in these organisations because they never feel as though they belong there.
But that's on the increase as well. So I get it. Autocratism and all of this is almost out, apart from some politics at the top, which we're definitely not talking about, and some figureheads in some big businesses that you see on the posters that have come through the era of the boss is the king culture now. And we don't have that. It's there's so many books on leadership, and inclusivity is a huge part of that moving forward. I think to a degree social media has done something positive by naming and shaming people in football, for example. If someone's racist in a football match, the media just have jumped all over it.
And what technology is going to do, though, is replace a lot of that. Most of the issues is human bias, both conscious bias and unconscious bias. Some don't believe in unconscious. Bias is bias.
True, there's a lot of
we've got bias in everything we do, in terms of humans like people that look like them, believe in the same gods, the same sexuality, all the very long list. We just like people that are more like us. We feel more comfortable with them.
Yeah.
And so in your business, with technology, what you're able to do is remove bias. And the more that we displace human labor with technology, the more you have the ability to eliminate bias from organisations and decisions.
We are going to cover that topic, and I've got something I'm going to read out actually in a bit regarding that. I want us to reverse a second. And it was something that we were talking about decision making maybe 5-10 minutes ago. So I've heard of level 1 decision making, level 2 type of decision making. Level 1 is when you ask someone, in the case now it might be asking AI, to go off and find you some information. But level 1 decision, before you action it, bring it to me so we can make the decision. And level 2 is you ask someone to go and do it. In this case, we might be asking AI, go and have a look, then go and implement it, and then bring me the results. So you understand the difference.
Yeah.
And that comes from delegation. That's classic delegation.
That's often also used to explain why an AGI might be different to an AI, so a specialist compared to a generalist. So in artificial intelligence as well, almost today we're at the point where we'll ask it to go and bring back a range of answers, and then we'll make a decision. But eventually, as you just said, absolutely right. I don't know if it's level 1, 2, or 3 even, is you will just... So right now, we're used to this sort of world of almost command prompts, like the graphical user interface. You move your mouse around or your trackboard, you click on stuff, and you get answers, and you make decisions. Then you drill down and go down a rabbit hole until eventually you narrow down to the answer you want. Yeah. And you make and it could be a sales funnel. You make a purchase, or you read the right article. In the future, it's going to be quite different. So that interface will disappear. So the keyboard, to my daughter, definitely her children, will be like, I mean, people listen to this, watching this, might not even remember them, but the old dial-up phones. They'll be like, you used to do what? So you're probably still going to need a keyboard of some sort, because everyone can't be talking into a technology on a train or a plane or whatever. But what these large language models that ChatGPT are based on have enabled us to do now is communicate in a multimodal way with technology. So it can be text to speech, text to video, they can listen, they can see, they'll be able to smell quite soon, and they can definitely hear. So you have all the senses the human has, you'll have in this technology as well. And again, so that's going to change the way in which we interact with technology and the way it interacts with us. So you move away from this clicking stuff, graphical user interface, to a natural language conversation, and the model becomes intent, objective. So you say, I need this, can you make it happen? And it goes off, does it, and eventually just does it. And all you get is the outcome. You're not asking it, you're not clicking on stuff and that kind of complicated process you go through trying to find something on the internet. It's all intent based and it's all natural language based. So imagine now if you're most companies use software. You go and buy it on the internet, and you pay 20 quid a month, whatever it is.
You've got like 100 subscriptions.
Yeah, I always forget. I always forget to can them. So I get the bill every month. And I'm like, what the hell is that? It's some weird thing I've been playing with, and I forgot to turn it off. But essentially, humans have said, right, I've got a need, an objective. You then go to a software development company, or whoever that might be, or a SaaS company that's done it for you, and say, right, I want some software that kind of does this, and you get an outcome. So in the world that's dawning upon us is that we'll just talk technology and say, look, I need this. This is my intent. This is objective. It will then write the code on the fly, instantaneously almost, and deliver that objective. And that's going to change. So software becomes a bit like, how does a microwave work? Most people don't know. What they do know is you put a potato in, you press a button, it's warmer and it tastes better. And that's what software is going to become. It'll become a layer of technology that you no longer see or interact with.
So, like the microwave, for example, it's a good. This is a good analogy here. It does something that you don't know how it does. It just makes your life easier, and you let it do it. No one's scared of a microwave. 15 years ago, I don't know whether it's 15 years ago. It might be longer. It might be slightly less. You remember this social media as we now know it? There was a lot of fear actually at that stage. Oh, I'm a bit old. I don't know how to use this type thing. Now, even though I say this a few times, people aren't scared of social media. Someone says, I'm scared of it. A bit of fun, but generally it's not a scary thing. You're definitely not scared about AI. That is...
Well, you're scared about it if some bad actor manages to, penetrate the Bank of England and, destroys an economy. So that worries me. But overall, I think...
You've got confidence. You exude confidence in it.
It doesn't matter. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. There's so much money chasing this now, in terms because in most technologies, if you look at the history of any technology, any sort of innovation curve, like especially digital technology, you've got the early adopters, people like me. You can't help yourself. You love it. You're in there. You're playing with it. And then the other extreme, you've got the laggards, the companies, the people that take decades to adopt it because they're concerned and they're so invested in the old way of doing it. Yeah. It takes almost a regime change in organisation to adopt a new technology over a sort of a working life. In AI, it's different. The big companies are running at this really hard. Not just the tech companies, the big enterprises, because they understand there's an existential risk to what they do and how they do it.
And they've moved fast, a lot of them.
That's what I mean. But usually it's the small companies and the early adopters. In AI, it's been the other way around. And that's very interesting.
It has, but, in some ways, I feel compelled right now to any listeners for this, I encourage them to openly embrace whatever they need to start embracing in.
Well, so I always say that AI will not take your job. AI will not outcompete, destroy your business. Somebody using AI or somebody using it in their business will.
Interesting, that point, actually, isn't it? So if you don't use it, someone else will, and it'll take your business.
Somebody will use AI to scale themselves up or optimize their business and become super competitive, superhuman almost. So if you're not on that ship as it leaves the harbour, you will remain on the quayside forever.
But and by the way, and this is complete bias, based on my own emotional assessment, because I think that anybody who's positively embracing it and using it in a small part right now is ahead of most of us.
Yeah. And it's surprising how many. So you see lots of stats about who's used use ChatGPT or Google Bard as an example, and it's quite a reasonably large number. But they've probably used it once because they heard about it on the news.
Yeah.
People are actively learning how to integrate this into their day-to-day life, their job, their career, their business. There aren't that many of them.
Could it become a habit? Like habit things that people do, and they're
I
trying to
start
develop
everything
a new
now
discipline.
with artificial intelligence. If I'm thinking about something, I'm brainstorming something, I'm concerned about something, that's where I start. Because
It's beautiful as well because it gets you moving, doesn't it? It gets the creative juices flowing.
Humans are never, the concept of writer's block.
Yeah,
it's gone.
It's gone, which is so nice. Remember all them years, the writers that are listening to this right now, all them years, writer's block. Yeah, it's gone.
But imagine that everybody is reasonably good at using artificial intelligence. So now your competitive advantage, be it personally or in business, has disappeared. It's evaporated. So what you have to do, and this is where it's going to get tiring, is that you as an individual or as an organ business, you've got to keep, I call it this value pyramid, and so it used to be all humans, you, your spear, and your dog, and a fire. And now you moved up, you've got ChatGPT. So that triangle, that's not quite a triangle, it's a funny shape.
Yeah.
But it's been filled with technology. So we humans have got to keep running up to the top. But that triangle at the top is getting smaller and smaller. So you have got to use the technology to differentiate. So you've got to be better at using it.
It'll never close, though.
No,
So it'll keep
there
evolving, won't it?
always going to be humans somewhere making decisions.
Can I read something?
But I don't know how many.
Can I read something? This is, and I've got to read this out of respect, and just a word of warning, this might take me 2 minutes to read this out because this is about empowerment to human beings. There's an article here on why AI will save the world, and it's by a gentleman named Mark Andreessen.
Now, Mark Andreessen was one of the founders of the internet. He was a guy that basically founded Netscape. And he's one of the partners in Andreessen Horowitz, which is one of the most successful West Coast VCs.
Look, I think this passage really can give people confidence. So the common mistake, the automation kills job doomers. So if you're thinking, I'm doomed, keep making is called the lump of labour fallacy. This fallacy is the incorrect notion that there is a fixed amount of labour to be done in the economy at any given time, and even machines do it or people do it. And if machines do it, that means there's going to be no work for me to do. Now, the lump of labour fallacy follows naturally from naive intuition, but naive intuition here is wrong. When technology is applied to production, we get productive growth. An increase in output that's generated by a reduction in input. The result is lower prices for goods and services. As prices for goods and services fall, we pay less for them, meaning that we've now got extra spending power with which to buy other things. This increases demands in the economy, which drives the creation of new production, including new products and new industries, which creates new jobs for the people who were replaced by machines in prior jobs. The result is larger economy with high material prosperity, more industries, more products, and more jobs. We're getting there. But the good news doesn't stop there. We also get higher wages, which everybody wants to know, yeah? This is because at the level of the individual worker, the marketplace sets compensation as a function of the marginal productivity of the worker. A worker in a technology-infused business, by the way, that is a good phrase, isn't it? A technology-infused...
I call it AI-assisted.
An AI-assisted business where it's going in.
Super efficient.
Yeah. Let me go back to that. A worker in a technology-infused business or an AI-assisted business will be more productive than a worker in a traditional business. So this can make you more productive. The employee will either pay that worker more money as he or she is now more productive, or another employer will pay you more money purely out of self-interest. The result is that technology introduced into an industry generally not only increases the number of jobs in the industry, but also raises wages. To summarize, technology empowers people to be more productive. This causes prices for existing goods and services to fall and wages to rise. This in turn causes economic growth for job growth while motivating the creation of new jobs and new industries. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I don't want to get into argument with Mark Andreessen because he's
Yeah,
obviously
right.
very bright, but I don't quite agree with all of that.
Which bits?
I think his economics has failed him. So essentially, in the previous industrial revolutions, that increase in productivity has been a positive because, and it's kind of almost, as he is kind of saying, it becomes cyclical. So you got more productivity, so you create more wealth. There's more product. People got more money, so they buy more stuff, and it's like a flywheel basically, and economies grow. You got two things. So one is that global population is falling. Number one. So some populations are going to collapse. Like Japan's a good example.
Right.
You got other regions like Africa where there are very young populations that are growing. So the global population is falling. So you've only got so much demand essentially. There are only so many things you can eat, buy, drive, live in. And if you think about the cost of energy, eventually goes to zero. That's a huge driver of change in commerce. If you think about the cost of content goes to zero because it is doing rapidly. If you then think about the ability to, the human cognitive labor kind of goes to zero because it can be done by machines. So the factories of the future are not big, horrible brick buildings with steam engines churning away.
Yeah.
They're data centers. It's the NVIDIA-driven, GPU-driven data center.
I heard that they're going to put them under the sea for cooling purposes.
They're the factory of the future.
Yeah.
It's cognitive output. And then eventually, this technology designs robotics, so AIs now that are walking around or moving around your floor, hoovering, but a bit more efficiently than the ones we've got today. The ability to generate goods and services at massively reduced cost far outstrips the demand for them. So I agree with him, therefore prices collapse.
Yeah.
But the number of humans you're going to need to do this, inevitably, unlike the other industrial revolutions, begins to fall away. There's no doubt about it. So I think he's trying to, which is a good thing, he's trying to push this potential era of abundance and the optimal human, which is fantastic. But if we're all super efficient, super productive, simple mathematics, you don't need that. You don't need as many of us working at least. So the big question for society then and governments is, and they're already looking at this, is well, what the hell do we do all day? And how do you tax that economy where you've got these massive organizations that can produce almost anything on the fly. They're producing goods and services we don't even know that we know. You might find that the human, I'm going off on a tangent here, you might find that population stabilizes or begins to grow because we solve lots of the health problems in the world and we cure lots of diseases. People aren't dying. We may find that people stop dying completely. And that's a big one. And they're not, it's easy to kind of laugh by that one, but actually we're not far away from solving what makes us age and turning it off. So suddenly we all live forever. That gets complicated, and then maybe his model is very important then. But in a world where humans don't live more than 100 years and populations are declining, I'm not sure his math stacks up.
How does it stack up? Forget his maths.
So again,
right. So I'm thinking myself for the future. Where should I upskill right now?
So
Where
right
should I
now,
develop
we're
myself?
sitting here having a conversation, right? Yeah. And but we could be at home and our AIs are doing it. Sounds like us, even looks like us.
Yeah.
If it's audio, it definitely sounds like us.
You bring your AI in next time. I'll bring mine, and we'll have a four-way
We'll just go and have lunch. But that is potentially where we end up. So the AI is going to change for the positive the lot of the human, for sure, right? The only thing that people haven't quite grasped with, and we don't know, I could be wrong, I could be completely wrong, Mark could be right, that we're all just going to have more and more stuff. But how much stuff do you actually need? And what's important now is stuff, because but it might become eventually that it becomes more important actually, because we don't need to work as hard, is experience. So it might be that you have a very different economy that's based on experience, rather than just producing fridges and freezers and flipping shiny cars, and trying to sell stuff you don't really need, because the AI will ruthlessly optimize and say you don't really need that. When you're in the airport and you said, right, I need to save this much per month. This is my plan. I've got my universal basic income. I've got this little business. I mean, what it does do potentially is empower us all to become entrepreneurs. What we do, what we produce, we don't know yet. So again, there's a fog 2 years out. terms of what the technology is and therefore how it's going to impact us.
So there's a fog 2 years out, but we've got to go to that point.
But beyond that, it becomes very, very hard to understand. So let's just say that we wake up in 3 years and there's an AGI, right? This is an intelligence which can do almost anything better than the human, or even an ASI, a super intelligence, where it does things that we don't even understand how it does it. Then what? How do you even look 1 year out after that? Because 1 year out then, in an exponential growth pattern, becomes even 6 months impossible to begin to understand or think about or model and plan. And what the linear world does for humans, which is why we like it, it lets us plan. Because we know that, broadly speaking, next year is going to be quite similar to this year, apart from the weather, interest rates, kind of like there might be a war, but generally speaking, we've seen it all before. When it's exponential, we have absolutely no clue. And I think that's what makes humans nervous, or it will do, because we haven't quite experienced it yet.
So, but what do we do in the short term? So next year is going to be a little bit similar to this year, a little bit more advanced. But what do we do right now?
So again, the analogy I like to use, I've got a company that does the AI, my business partner, he likes a bullet train analogy. I like the ship in the harbour. So you imagine we're all on the quayside. There's the ship of opportunity, and it's leaving the harbour, and that's what everyone on there is using artificial intelligence. You can make that leap from the quayside to the boat. I think that's a certain distance out. Then it becomes very, very hard, and then eventually it becomes impossible to make the leap. And that boat's accelerating away at an ever-accelerating speed. It becomes exponential. And the point with AI is, this is why nation states are obsessed with it, is that, I think Mark Andreessen, in his article, I read it as well, says that we need to solve AGI before China does.
Yeah, it does,
West. Yeah. So, but if we don't, that becomes an enormous competitive, political, military advantage. So that is what nation states are obsessed with, because if you solve it on Monday and then somebody else solves it on Wednesday, you never catch up, because the rate of change is so great that gap actually becomes greater over time. So if you don't, going back to answer your question, if you don't make that leap onto that boat, once that gap is too far for you to make the leap, you are staying on that quayside forever. And that's not just you personally, that can be entire society.
You can't, there's not 10-year lag with this one. You can't you can't wait for 10 years.
You've got to start playing with it now to understand how you leverage it, use it, utilize it to scale yourself up.
And for the Western world to get this before China.
Or bad actors as well.
You call them bad actors, the people in the wrong hands, yeah?
And the thing about AI is the other thing that's quite hard to understand is this, right? So let's just say that I'm Einstein, right? So which I'm definitely not. But I've got this amazing brain. I thought all these things, invented them, and I've wrote all these papers. You come along, you have to read them all, understand them all, assimilate them all, test them, have a hypothesis, test it over many, many, many years. And by the end of your lifetime, maybe you stood on the shoulders of that giant as well and it added some value. Say a lot of AIs, it's not going to be one big, Skynet AI in the sky, really. There are going to be lots of them, personal ones, corporate ones, governmental ones. But say you got a room full of 200 AIs, all sitting there, and my AI, I suddenly solve something.
Is there actually going to be a physical entity of
embodiment's a whole different thing, but no, I don't think you need. But you don't need AIs.
But when you say 200 AIs, do we mean like 200 computers?
I'm just talking. It could be an Android, a bot, or it could be a laptop. I think whatever. There's 200 AIs connected. Let's call it that. That makes it easy to understand. Now I'm in that network. Now suddenly I solve something that I've been beavering away on overnight, and it changes the world. The instant that I solve that problem, every other AI understands it.
Yeah.
And goes, oh, okay, and starts beavering away on that, and that's where I get exponential change.
Yes, it's cool. It does make a good point about that whole thing. I mean, one of my takeaways from you is start getting experience in it. Just start getting experience in it. 2 years from now is the fog. We don't know what's going to happen. Maybe we should do a podcast every quarter and update people the next quarter.
Because there's no downside to learning about this, because change everything you do. It will change your view in the world. It will help you access more information and more intelligence. And who cannot benefit from that?
True. I mean, look, it's irrefutable. You can't contest that. So go and get the experience. This is the point that Mark kind of summarizes. Start driving AI into our economy and maximize the gains for economic productivity and human potential. He uses that word, human potential, really well in that article. And the more everyone does that in our economy here in the UK, let's just talk about here in the UK, the faster we're going to grow. Everyone's accessing it.
It's also so. I was a trustee of Nesta, which is one of the UK's largest innovation foundation agency. It's got 600 million foundation, national lottery money for 6 years. So this is why I got into AI, because 5 years ago now, we did quite a lot of research on the impact of artificial intelligence. This is way before anything like ChatGPT. It was all kind of clunky machine learning research. But it was the impact of artificial intelligence on the UK. So we looked at, for example, and I might not get this exactly right, but say the Northeast, yeah. Lots of call centres like Loughborough. Now, you're not going to need humans in call centres in 5 years. Absolutely not. You might need one or two to escalate problems, things that have blown up. But in terms of people, someone answering the phone, accessing data, listening to the customer and solving problems, absolutely not gone. So you might have a whole region of a country where the core skill that's used for employment disappears overnight. So what do? You've got to reskill an entire population.
Well, it happened, didn't it,
in
coal? It happened in the Industrial Revolution with coal mining.
But the issue there is that there was something else for people to go and do. I mean, the agrarian revolution is a good example. So, Industrial Revolution, people moved from the fields into cities because people became wealthier. They had more. They wanted to buy more stuff. So you had this flywheel. I think it's different when an entire region, not over the course of 50 or 100 years, over the course of potentially a week, because some new technology has been, so let's just say on next Monday.
By the way, that's actually a good example. I don't believe it'll be a week, but it's a good example because it's extreme thinking.
Well, I'm not about a week. It might take longer to implement and deploy it. Let's just say on Monday that some company, OpenAI or somebody, Google says we are now launching a absolutely perfect chatbot for customer service. Understand all your company data far better than a human. It sounds like a human. You can program with any completely realistic voice with any accent that you cannot differentiate from a real human, and it's much better at problem solving, listening to customers. It doesn't get moody, doesn't turn up late. We have launched this product. Every company with a call center is going to spend the next 2 years implementing that product. So I'm not talking about the moment of implementation as such. I'm talking about the moment of launch. So you might see that week that there is now a clear path to an entire region's reason for employment to disappear.
But even there's still a clear path, they still don't know what's beyond 2 years anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So the point there is that you have to start thinking about yourself in a way. So I've got teenage children, 2 teenagers, one just about to become a teenager in school, and my eldest, called Tiger, she's like a mini me. She's an entrepreneur. Her favourite was business, right? And she's saying to me, "Well, I can use artificial intelligence, can't I, to do all of this stuff?" And I'm kind of like, "Yeah." So you got to get your exams, do what you got to do, do your best, but spend more time learning about using this technology, because you will never, our children, or any of us, but especially our children, will never not have this technology in their life. And the technology they're using today, we all think is amazing. They are going to have technology by the time they are working or starting businesses that is orders of magnitude better. My stepson was learning to code. He was doing a Java front end, a bit of Python. And he did this course for like almost a year, 18 months. And it came to the end of it was like a module. And I said, right, we need to get you on the next module. And he's like, no point. I used ChatGPT. I was supposed to do a project and write a game, and I tried it and it did it and it works. And I'm kind of like thinking, I really want to say to him, it's really important you become the architect, not the bricklayer, blah, 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 blah. But I know coding, I think I said it earlier, the need to code will disappear, just like you need to know how a microwave works.
True. Now, I mean, I'm not going to ask a question on that, but he does get the. It's mind-boggling on how things are going to change like that in that area for education. Now, but I do want to talk about the small business. I mean, what kind of things does a small business owner need to be doing right now to help push the business forward?
So this is about scaling yourself up on your business. So there's an enormous opportunity to superpower you and your business, and to create a meaningful, there's always a sustainable competitive advantage in economics, but I really mean it. You know, you can create a real competitive advantage. So you've got outwards looking use of technology, so sales, customer, hyper personalized your customer experience. Before it was kind of like, okay, so Piers is a male that lives in London of this age group that likes bikes. I'll send in some relevant information. In the hyper-personalization world, I can send you a video of me talking to you, using your name, and talking about your favorite subject. An actual video. Not quite there yet, but it's probably a year away. And so you can have a hyper-personalized engagement potential. And then you've got, sales automation, CRM, content is a huge one. So you don't just churn out content because everyone's doing it using AI. Use that context and data to make it differentiated. And then you've got the internal looking benefits, which are optimizing your operations, reducing your margins, into the potentially reducing the number of people you need, but definitely reducing the number of people you're going to need to grow. So if your revenue is growing and your costs aren't, what is growing? Your margin, your profit, the value of your business. Because now, if your company's worth 10 times its profit, say, average sort of a multiple, and increase your profits by 10%, and you're doing £1 million, you've just created £1 million of value. So use this technology and understand it to optimize and improve your relationship with customers, optimize your operations, but use it in a way which is agile, lightweight, and flexible, because the technology you're going to implement today will look very different in a year's time. And what that means is that you can now do things that the competition who are not doing this can do. And, there's another interesting YouTube video by called Andrew, and how you pronounce his name, it's NG, is it? So he's a VC, he's focused on AI. And it's about the long tail. And the long tail is that it's been quite hard for big companies especially, and even small companies, to go after all those little customers that are they're hard to manage, they're hard to support, they ask too many questions, So, whereas now, with AI, because you can automate all of that, you can go after the long tail. So I think what you're going to see in business is this battle for the middle. So large enterprises can now come down. It now will become, because they're more efficient, more productive, they're automated, it will become more economically viable for them to manage and chase and close smaller customers, which was never their will before. Smaller companies can also now go after the long tail of even smaller customers, or because they're super powered now, they can go after slightly bigger customers. So what you get, GE is never going to open a local fish and chip shop, and vice versa. Local fish and shop not going to start making jet engines with global distribution, right? However, the middle bit, you can now both start to go after.
I like that, the battle for the middle.
Yeah, it's going to be huge.
Yeah, I mean, there's a podcast in that in itself, isn't there? It's really powerful what you said there. Let me just repeat a couple of things. What you should focus on in the short term. Well, focus on optimizing your relationship with your customers. Focus on optimizing your operations. Focus on optimizing your margins.
And trying to grow and do more with what you've got, or ideally less.
Yeah.
And that which and
that's a leverage mentality, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. And like in any technology, you might think everyone's doing it, but they're not. Or they're doing it and it's half baked. They're sitting there saying, "Hi, ChatGPT, can you write me an article about flower arranging?" So I've got to put them on my website, and it's rubbish. If you've provided context, information about what flowers, your local customers, what they're interested in, you've used it to extract data about your customers, to hyper-personalize a message, to send it to them, a picture, a video. You're a wealth manager. I know you like golf. I've now sent you a picture of, your wealth plan. On the front of it is a big picture of you in a picture playing golf, slightly aged even maybe. And you can do all of this.
Yeah, play around with it, get some experience in that. I love what you said there. You might think everyone else is doing it. They're not.
They're not.
But you are. You're doing it. So do that, follow it. Take the advice from Piers himself. I've got some quick questions for you to finish up on here. What's your favourite book?
Oh, that's a good question, actually. So I don't really read a lot of these sort of self-help books. I've read a few in the past. Kind of moved beyond it, really. The one I, interesting enough, you mentioned Mark Andreessen.
Yeah.
So his business partner is a chap called Ben Horowitz. So there's Andreessen Horowitz is the name of their fund,
Right.
very, very famous venture capital fund on the West Coast. And he wrote a book called The Hard Thing About Hard Things.
The hard thing about hard
Yeah,
things.
and I like that book because it's kind of his journey. But what it does, though, a lot of the stuff you see on the internet. I made a course for startups, which we can maybe share free of charge if you want to. And it's about, because I saw on the internet everything was about the universe, straight line growth, 10x. That's just not the way the world works. It's a grind and it's hard, and you have to get back up after being knocked down. And Ben Horowitz writes this book about his journey and about how he was knocked down, how he got back up, the things that worked, the things that didn't work. And it's quite an honest book. And so that's one of the best business books. And then you got there's a lean startup, where we're reading all the kind of usual things.
Stick to that.
But that was the best business book that I've read for a long time.
Yeah. You get you working hard.
Blue Ocean Strategy. That's a good book.
Really good book.
That's a great book.
Really good point. Like anything that gets back to reality, where hard work, dedication, commitment, sacrifice, you go for it. There's a grind involved. There's a way of writing that gets you motivated to do that. So it sounds like I should have a read of that book. Good share. What's your favourite movie?
Interstellar.
Oh,
Yeah.
because
It's very hard to pick a favourite movie because of different genres,
Go on
different
then.
types.
You can have a few. You can be greedy.
Interstellar is the one where I can watch that film
Is
over
that Matt Damon?
and
Who's
over
it?
again.
Who's in that?
No, it's I've gone blank now. It's
Not George Clooney. I'm thinking
no, what's it
Martian or
called?
something there. Interstellar. Mark Wahlberg.
No. What's it called? The guy that sort of southern drawl. Mine's gone blank.
Yeah, well, you'll know. You'll be getting it. You'll be
But
picking it up.
Interstellar's about it's that blend of I think his name has gone blank. So Interstellar's about technology, the future, intelligence.
Well, look, it goes
who
with
we
the
are,
theme of
who
this
we are as
conversation.
humans.
Right. What about your favourite music?
I'm more of a dance music aficionado, really. But
A bit of a dancer?
I used to be. I was. I used to be in that business for a while. But again, I mean, one of my favourite soundtracks is the Hans Zimmer soundtrack to Interstellar, which essentially is classical music with organs. So I can listen to that all day long. So, I might like my sort of happy house, your disco house. I've been to Ibiza for every year for God knows how many years. But my dad was quite classical.
Right.
So quite recently I was in Verona listening to Carmen the opera.
Yeah.
And I enjoy any genre of music, really.
If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Well, it's got to be to fly, isn't it? Well, fly or read people's minds.
Ooh.
I don't know. You've got a superpower now. It's called AI.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's quite. I was thinking that as soon as I asked the question, there's some kind of AI answer in that somewhere. Read people's minds. Maybe there's some AI in that. What about your favourite holiday destination?
Well, for many years it's been kind of Ibiza in many ways, but I'm half Bayesian, so
You have what?
I'm Bayesian, but from Barbados. My mum's from
Right.
Barbados.
That's
so
what it's called, Bayesian. I didn't even know that.
or Barbadian, called Bayesians. But so Barbados has a particular it's somewhere that I kind of love to go to. But other people like a lot of people I know have got houses in certain countries, but I don't quite get that because I'd get bored of going to the same place.
Yeah, my wife does. She's like, oh, we're going somewhere different. I was like, oh, I could come to this place again. It's so beautiful. But there you go. Are you an early bird or night owl?
I'm a night owl, but if I want to go and get any kind of exercise, I need to get up early. So if I'm in, it takes some time. I drop out of it and I get back into it. I'm kind of getting back into it now. So I need to be in the gym by like 7, or it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And ride bikes. But the issue with me is that once I start sort of working and I'm focused on something, and it's not always a good thing because you've got work-life balance. But I can be there at 4 a.m. Actually happened this week.
You were in the gym at 4 a.m?
No, the other way around. Happened this week where I had to be somewhere at like 6, 7 in the morning, and I was still awake at 5:30. Just thinking, writing, go to sleep, And eventually I got some sleep and I felt fine the next day. But sometimes my brain just kicks in and it's hard to turn it off.
Yeah, I ask everybody that question, and there's a myth that they think that super successful people are all early birds. It's not true, actually.
I don't.
It's not true.
I wake up in the morning, I get up at 6, I have an ice bath, I do a marathon, and then I do some meditation.
You hear that? There's a lot of
Like,
younger
sorry?
generation actually say that.
No, they don't. They're just like, I just don't believe
No,
it.
they say that.
Yeah, totally. There's people say that because you don't need an ice bath to be successful.
Yeah. Right. So if you could have one day in someone else's life, who would you choose?
One day,
Past or present?
somebody else's life. I would love to have experienced like my dad's life when he was dad's passed away now, but if he was when he was at Cambridge back in the day, because he's a working class lad from Manchester that got to Cambridge. Or he always talked about, being in Manchester during the Blitz, just some of his experiences, because it's very hard to understand now they've gone. You always want to talk about them more. So to understand the experiences he had that made him, which kind of made me really.
Yeah, really emotional point,
It's not some celeb or religious icon. It's
before you said that, I'm glad you said that your dad, by the way. I just wondered if you would say an AI.
No, because you can access those now. I mean, AIs are not. There's this misconception that they're this separate entity. They're not. It's like a toaster, right? It's a technological tool that you can now use to empower yourself and scale yourself up. Even when you have artificial general intelligence, an intelligence that can do almost anything, it's multimodal, you don't have to be a specialized one. Even artificial super intelligence that's designing and doing things that are way beyond our comprehension, it comes up with new theories in physics and chemistry that we're like, whoa, that change mankind's perception of the world and the universe around them. Even then, it doesn't have to be sentient. It's not conscious. It's technology. It's a toaster.
It's one way of looking at it, isn't it? Gives a nice perspective. So look, you're super successful, Piers. Who've been the 3 biggest trusted advisors in your life?
So I get asked this a lot, and I've never really had like mentors throughout my life. I've had to go which is not ideal to be honest with you. I had to go and find out what it is I wanted to do and what I wanted to do next myself. So I grew up not too far from where you did. I was on the wrong side of the border, depending what side of the border.
Yeah.
I was Lancashire, Yorkshire.
Lancashire.
Yeah, exactly. So I didn't know what a lawyer was really until I got to university, and I found law interesting. I did A level. I didn't know what a lawyer did. I didn't know the difference between a solicitor and a barrister until I got to university. And then I got into I went from Milltown Comprehensive School, which you know what those look like, to being a lawyer in the city, which is nuts, to being a banker at Credit Suisse when it was solvent, which is even more nuts because that was like that was like the ultimate job in those days, professional job, earning more money. I bought my first sports car on a debit card sort of thing. And I was sending my mum and dad like part of my bonus, and they were like, "Sorry, what? I thought I'd robbed a bank." So I went through all of that and ended up sort of working in places that I never thought I would. I've forgotten your question now. What was your question again?
3 biggest trusted advisors.
Yeah, I've got tangents. So through all of that, my role models, mentors, really, probably my parents initially. And then they were people that I work with. So my boss. So it might be the chap that trained me as a lawyer. I learned a lot from professionally, but
what
also...
did you get from?
Just from how to be a lawyer, but also just how to be that professional, that ability to work at that level, and especially in banking. So a lot of the people I work with in banking, even the more senior people, are still friends to this day, because the work ethic, I've never experienced it ever since. In those days, being a banker was you were the master of the universe. Now you're the person that does the numbers. It was different then. This is like 1990s, late 90s. This is when the dot-com boom was at its absolute height, and I was lucky to be a banker in those days. So it was kind of people I worked with, and then after that, there was nobody really until reasonably recently, the last sort of 10 years. So the chap I've worked with he's been a chairman of a business I've been involved in, the chairman of a charity. Is Sir Ken Alissa. So Sir Ken Alissa is a very interesting chap. So he is half Nigerian, half English, grew up in a 2 up, 2 down in Nottingham, and now he's Sir Ken Alissa, the Lord Lieutenant of Greater London. So if you ever see the royal family, whenever they're out in London, Greater London, he He's the one looking after them, essentially.
Yeah.
So he's the mixed race guy with a sword. And he was very, very involved in the coronation of the king reasonably recently. So he's been someone where I meet every 6 months, and I'll meet him. I met him quite recently. And I go, hi, Piers, how's it going? How's the hit rate? And I go, well,
How's
I've been
the hit
involved.
rate?
Yeah, I've been involved in 3 businesses. 2 haven't really worked out, and one's gone a bit south. And he'd be like, that's a fantastic result. I'm like, what? So all I'm thinking about is the 2 that haven't really worked out. I'm so depressed. I don't want to get out of bed.
It's nice though to.
But he's objective. He's like, that's
Yeah.
amazing. Usually only 1 in 10 make it. Brilliant. Anything else? And then I remember a while ago, I met him. This is about a few years ago now. And there's a few things going on in my life, and I was a bit sort of down. I went to see him, and I was like, he's like, how's it going? I'm like, I got this and that, and I'm not sure about this. And he was like, Piers, pull yourself together. Self-pity does not suit you. And I remember to this day thinking, he's absolutely right. Get your
How
hands
good is
together
that?
and get out. And
Even the mighty Piers Linney.
oh yeah,
You know, I used to have a hard look
he
in the mirror.
proverbially just slapped me hard across the
That's
face
really
to get
cool.
out of my office.
Fantastic. Yeah, fantastic shares. Right, so if there was one thing that you would encourage the listeners to do after listening to this podcast, what would it be?
So one is my advice is let's talk about artificial intelligence, right? You can take my other advice, but learn, and you can do this all on YouTube, right? Is learn the basics of what it is and how it works. That gives you the context of what the hell you can actually extract from this. Understand things like, what's large language model, what does GPT mean, what's a transformer, how does it work, what's multimodal mean, and then go and try these things. Try text to image, try text to video. And what they're going to do, you're going to go on a runway, for example, and use text to video. So go in there and say, create me a short video, maybe 4 seconds, of an astronaut riding horse on a beach through the surf in golden hour. Boom. Now, you might find the horse has got 1 human leg, and you think, that's a bit rubbish. But just stop for a moment and think about where this is going. Because within 5 years, you'll be able to sit down at home on a Saturday night with your popcorn and say, right, computer, create me a cowboy film that's a bit funny, and it's got these kind of characters in it. It's this long, and I want beginning, middle, and end, a bit like this. Blah, blah, blah. But don't tell me the ending, or give me 2 endings to choose from. Boom, it'll create it, and you watch it. So don't get lost in what it is today. Think about the art of the possible. And then once you've understood the basics, focus on generative AI. So generative AI is things like ChatGPT, Google Bard, there's lots of them. And understand how you create prompts, how you provide context, how you use them, how you use things like plugins, how you use them to access the internet and other forms of database, how you use them like Code Interpreter, which is part of ChatGPT, other ones to do data analysis. So data analysis now used to be something you need a data analyst for. Now, forget it. That's going away very, very quickly. So understand how you use, and then just start to use it. Start to use it to brainstorm, to create content, to write things, to challenge things, to learn, to take 2 viewpoints and try a personal AI and just talk to it. I spend hours, sadly, talking to these personal AIs just to test them out. So I'll go down rabbit holes and talk about politics, war, sex.
But you've been through that
and you can see them
phase.
like, whoa, and you think, well, eventually now they're quite cautious. They don't want to go down rabbit holes, but eventually they're going to allow more of a conversation because they're a bit cautious now. So my advice, to answer your question directly, is to start using this stuff and understand how it can superpower you as an individual. And if you've got a business, start to understand how it can superpower and massively differentiate your business to the competition.
Beautiful. You said in there, think about the art of the possible as well. It's just a nice
and
phrase.
think about what you're using, what you're seeing today is, depending how old you are, if you're my age, it's Pong. Ding, ding, ding. The tennis, the rubbish tennis game. If you're a bit younger, it's Nokia Snake. That rubbish game. So that's what you're seeing today.
You've just offended a lot of people by calling that rubbish, by the way.
Sorry, I know people love it. I'm never a fan of it. But it took my lifetime to go from Pong, which is that very simple tennis game, to Fortnite, to Call of Duty, to your Forza Horizon, almost cinematic-looking footage in a game. It won't take my lifetime to go from Nokia Snake-style AI to something which is incredible. It'll be 2 to 5 years, tops. So it's the worst today. it's ever going to be.
Well, look, so many good things in this conversation.
Matthew McConaughey. Interstellar.
We've got it, ladies and gentlemen. It's Matthew McConaughey. I mean, for all of the ladies, you're gonna love that movie as well. So my favourite part of today, two parts. One, I kind of felt it in my heart because I've got young kids. Is encourage young people to do this.
100%. Your children. I mean, my kids are going on an AI course. One of my business partners, Implement AI, is doing is get your children to really understand this technology and start using it right now. So use it as an AI, a chatbot is a infinitely patient, infinitely knowledgeable tutor that you don't have to pay for.
There you go. Get the young people doing it. Get on the courses as young as possible. And number two, superpower yourself as an owner.
Scale yourself up individually and your business, and especially, talk about coaches. A lot of them got quite small businesses or just them. So by superpowering and scaling yourself up, you're scaling your business up. You can engage with your clients better. You can provide, and what you're trying to do compared to competition, as in any business, at the end of the day, is add more value to your client, for a given price than the competition does. That's it.
Look, they're my two favourite bits. What's been your favourite part of this conversation?
So one was about really is what I enjoy is talking to someone like yourself. So I spend my days immersed in this stuff. Is just really sharing the power of it. And then what I often see, I can see in your eyes, is when you're talking about things, I give some examples, you can see the lights going on and like, yeah, I never thought about that. And I think that moment of realization of the world we are going to experience, and the fascination of it, I think, is and you hear this a lot, like, have you seen the film Master and Commander, where he's got this big wooden ship and he's like, the technology of our age is amazing. I'm like, okay. But I think that we literally are going to live through, assuming nothing awful happens, we're going to live through an age where the human lot in terms of our interaction with each other and technology, the human experience is going to change materially. So to me, the whole conversation is interesting just by sharing where this is going. But the key thing you've picked out is probably the Mark Andreessen point, which is about, this is not about, I'll say it again, androids crunching over the skulls of humans in some horrible cityscape of the dystopian future. This is about abundance, empowerment, positivity, about scaling ourselves. Like, yeah, we're going to have to fight the bad actors, but you've always got to do that anyway. So it's about really embracing this for good.
There you got it. Thank you very much, Piers Linney.
Thank you for having me.